Number 1. I recently moved into a small town in Washington State. There is a decent sized state forest nearby, and my wife and I have been hiking in the area. The first time I saw this tag was my first time driving into the forest. We had been to a popular trailhead a few times previously and walked in some. This time, I went in a 4x4 and was following the service road up to a gun range I'd heard about. Around a mile up this dirt road heading up a mountain was a vista spot with large construction barriers on both sides and various signage about the forest roads. Written on the barriers, one letter per barrier, was a large ALIVE tag written with the spray paint. This barely registered with me as I drove past and continued onward. We continue hiking in the forest, sometimes at trailheads. Sometimes we would drive down various combinations of dirt roads before hiking it. The next time I saw the tag was at a tie hike between two major hiking trails. There was an equestrian sign indicating horses might be crossing. The head of the rider had been shot out of the sign via several bullets, and there was an alive tag on it. This one stood out to me more because I commented on it to my wife, mentioning that I seen it before, and also that I disliked the horse riders, so found it kind of funny. Next, I saw it on the back of a road sign leaving at a dirt road. This one said Alive 15, with the 15 being small and the inside the E. I figured this was likely a reference to 2015. The tag at the construction barriers was gone when I drove by on another trip, painted over. We found a small concrete bridge that was blocked to cars by construction barriers. There was a good hike here we went on many times. Drove up to this bridge myself and pulled up next to it, planning to turn around here. I got out after hearing the water and wanting to take a break. Wandered around for a bit. I never gone under the bridge. Let's go check it out. Underneath the bridge on the concrete wall along the road that can't be seen from up top is a large ALIVE mural. It spans the length of the wall, side to side, top to bottom, and it's gory with the letters being made of body parts and bones. Interesting. Well, I drew a lot of skeletons when I was a kid. I cut across a small creek, along some rocks to the center bridge pillar. There is no graffiti anywhere on the side. On the other side is a list of names crossed out and some very old faded tags. Written here is a lot of crossed out names and strange gibberish. There are old tags written on the wall in the typical cool graffiti script style, but within them are the new tags. There are pentagrams and a triangle of sixes and other symbols within the older tagging. Then there is a writing about killing various races, but it says all races. It's written like boasting, X killers, Y killers, Z killers, etc. This kind of stuff covers this side of the concrete, and it's all written with the same color handwriting. Everywhere there used to be any tag on this part of the bridge, it's now overwritten by the stuff within the old tags. None of this can be seen from the road, and I realize that likely no one really knows it's here. The other tag that was seen from the road was already removed. This was all the side facing the road, so no one will see it unless they came down here. I'll be leaving soon, but I have this urge to find out who Alive is, but obviously They don't sound very friendly. I'm tempted to cross it, the alive sign, 15 sign, just as a way of communicating and seeing what happens, but I know that would upset them. I know this is let's not meet, but should I try to meet this person or just let it go? Move on and be happy? I didn't. Also, one other strange thing is there is no other graffiti in this whole forest that I've seen, just alive, all over the place. And now the older graffiti that was written all over the bridge. Is it like I'm still alive and no one else here is, or what? One other note. Near this bridge on the trail that extends from it, we found a large dump of animal skulls. It was off a side trail that was barely visible, but we suddenly ran into like 4 to 5 trash bags full of small animal skulls. Just skulls. Number 2. I will never forget the strange things that happened to me in this house I grew up in when I was 15 and 16 years old. I lived with my parents, 1 sister, 4 dogs, and 2 cats. Whenever I was home alone, the phone would ring. I would answer it, only to hear nothing. It was very quiet, like a vacuum sound. I would say hello a couple of times, but would hear no answer, breathing or laughing. After about 30 seconds, I would hear faint violin sound music in the background. Very old-fashioned sounding for a few seconds, and then the dial tone. Sometimes this will happen in the middle of the night. I told my family about the calls and was told to hang up and forget about it. The second thing that began happening to me, I would try to describe as best as I can. When I would be at home alone, I often would finish homework or clean up the kitchen while playing the stereo. My dad was very accommodating when it came to my sisters and my needs to hear Aerosmith, The Who, and Kiss, and several others loudly by installing speakers not only in the living room, but also in the kitchen. Anyway, there I was one night scrubbing pans and listening to Roger Daltrey, and I heard someone running across the floor upstairs, which was my sister's room. Immediately, I turned off the water and stealthily ran to the living room to shut off the stereo and listen. I heard no more sounds. I concluded that I was hearing things and went back to my dishes and music. After about 10 minutes, it happened again. This time, after shutting off the water in the stereo, I grabbed the largest knife I could in the kitchen and prayed and began ascending the stairs to find out what the noise was. After making it to the top, with my heart in my mouth, I went into my sister's room and started turning on the lamps. I gratefully saw no one, but I knew I had to look further. I checked her closet, not easy. Then my room, closet, guest room, and storage closet. My search turned up no one. This event happened to me and about 6 more times over the next year. Each time was the same. The last item to describe happened when I was not alone. My girlfriend, Sarah, was sitting in the kitchen after school at about 3:15 p.m. After chatting for a few minutes, we heard a tremendous crash coming from my sister's room. It seemed to make the ceiling vibrate with the impact, and it sounded like muffled glass breaking. I said, Did you hear that? She said, yes. Thank God, I said. I had been through this before, but Sarah insisted we both venture up the stairs armed with the turkey carving knife and the largest jinsu knife I could find. We found nothing amiss in my sister's room except for an old suitcase of my deceased grandfather lying on its side in her closet. It was locked, but it seemed to be empty. It was leather, old, and weighed about 2 pounds. We placed it upright and went downstairs. In about 15 minutes, the crash was heard again. Again, we ventured upstairs to find the suitcase lying on its side. The suitcase had fallen, but there was no way it could have made such a crash, as we heard which sounded like a large television being dropped on the floor. In about 10 minutes, it happened again. The suitcase was lying on its side. We had placed it upright again. We decided to leave it lying on its side and went downstairs. We left the house for about 20 minutes to go out and did not hear it again. Number 3. When I was in 5th grade, my best friend died from hanging. I should note that to this day, no one knows if it was on purpose or accident. My sister, who is 4 years younger than me, found him hanging. He was too high for either of us to do anything. There was a picnic table that was flipped over that lay beneath him. Ever since that time, my family heard footsteps walking from one side of the house to the other. Even when there may have been one person at the home at the time. The most bizarre experience I had was when my sister and I were home alone about 1 year later, and we heard pounding on the walls. It was just over a year that my friend died. I went upstairs to find out what it could be, and I went room to room. When finally I came to the spare bedroom, and found a hammer lying in the middle of the floor. There was no damage to anything. I talked to my parents soon after that, and they said that nobody had been in that room in almost a month. This happened in 1981. Till this day, my parents still hear footsteps. Number 4. I had an uncle who passed away a few years ago. He was a well-known man in the area and had many friends. Needless to say, the chapel where the funeral was being held was very crowded. The chapel had several large glass sections in the rear where people could see the services when the seating area was full. I was seated near the front of the chapel with other relatives of my departed uncle. I started noticing people looking towards the rear of the chapel, and several had shocked look on their faces. When I turned to look, I had the strangest feeling, for there was a gentleman standing on the other side of the glass. That could have been my uncle's twin brother. He was the same size, shape of face, same haircut, same glasses, same everything. No one in the chapel knew who this mysterious man was. When the services were over, all the relatives went to this man with plenty of questions. Come to find out, this man had drank coffee with my uncle for years at the restaurant on the way to work, and he said that even the people at the cafe thought they were twins for a long time. I know this kind of explains the mystery man, but for this to happen at a funeral was truly a rare, hair-raising experience. I've seen the gentleman a few times since, and it still gives me a strange feeling. Number 5. When I was 12 years old, my parents had gone out for the evening. I was accustomed to staying alone and never was afraid. It was in the summertime, and our living room windows were up, but the Venetian blinds were down. Around midnight, I got the most horrible feeling that someone or something was out there. I was absolutely terrified. A total unusual experience for me. I was afraid to go raise the blinds to close the window. I huddled on the sofa with all the lights on, begging out loud for my mother to please come home. I was nearly hysterical. Suddenly, my parents came in. My mother was practically breathless, demanding to know if there was something wrong. I knew at once I was safe because my parents were home and didn't want to sound like a baby. So I replied, "Nothing's wrong." My dad was angry with my mother because they were in the restaurant having ordered their food and waiting for it to arrive. My mother practically dragged him out of there, insisting that there was something wrong at home. A few nights later, I went in my bedroom and raised one slat in the blinds at my eye level. I was looking directly into the eyes of someone outside of our window, standing on the ground, and me and my house were at eye level. Of course, I screamed, and my dad called the police. We learned that there had been several reports of a prowler in the neighborhood. He was finally caught about 2 weeks later trying to break into a house just down our street. That is the strongest telepathic experience I've had ever. Please subscribe if you want to hear more creepy, true encounters.